The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, College Edition, featuring Pennsylvania natives Tristan Warner and Rob Waltko. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Pennsylvania wrestling fans, you are now dialed into the PA Power College Wrestling Podcast. I'm your co-host, Tristan Warner, joined by Rob Waltko. This is Season 3, Episode 6 of the 2019-2020 season. Rob, hard to believe we're already in Season 6, but we got some good matches from this past weekend to recap. And as always, we got some big-time matches and tournaments coming up this weekend that we're going to go ahead and preview. So, Rob, you want to go ahead and jump right in with some results that happened over the weekend?
Yeah, so no particular order. My Bucknell Bison dropped a few duels. They lost to Northern Illinois and Iowa State. They wrestled Iowa State pretty tough, though. You had Darren Miller go out there, beat Todd Small, who's a pretty tough guy. I think he was a JUCO national champ. Zach Hartman, he's up to 165. He got 2 wins, including a win over Chase Straw, who's the Big 12 champ last year, and a win. Drew Phipps also went 2-0 for the Bucknell Bison. Some individual results. Gavin Teasdale took a loss at the Luther Open. We'll dig more into the Iowa lineup later. It's interesting to see what they're going to do, but kind of surprising loss there. Oklahoma State came in and took on some teams from out east, Drexel and Lehigh. They beat Drexel 30-6. Chandler Olson had a nice win over Blue Chip Reese Withcraft. Ebba Jarrell fell to Whitlake. O'Malley got a nice win at heavyweight. And then Lehigh beats them on criteria. Oklahoma State had some backups in. Whitcraft didn't wrestle. He didn't pass skin checks, and that's been a point of concern for some Oklahoma State fans. And then Joe Smith didn't make weight or didn't wrestle, so we didn't get that marquee matchup with Jordan Cutler and Joe Smith. Did you hear about this skin thing, Tristan? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I heard that he didn't pass the skin check, which was kind of surprising to me because he had just wrestled, what was it, the night before? Was it a Friday, Saturday, or a Friday, Sunday? So, it's kind of surprising that one would pass the skin check one day and then the next day or 2 days later where you would assume whatever skin ailment it was would be somewhat cleared up, 48 hours later potentially. It's kind of surprising. I guess you get a different ref sometimes and stuff happens, but definitely a little surprising. And just at the Division I college level, that you don't really hear of that happening very often.
So I know that there was a lot of pouting on Twitter from the Oklahoma State guys, and I asked some of my Lehigh friends what happened. I guess Lehigh has a dermatologist that does the skin checks, and he's a ball buster, but with good reason. Apparently this kid was covered in herpes. So Whitcraft apparently got through the trainer, gets to this guy, and this guy, I guess, actually wrote the rules for the NCAA on skin checks. So he's like, God in this regard. And he grabbed it and said, hey, this guy's covered. He's not wrestling. But a lot of pouting from Oklahoma State, but Lehigh faithful are saying it's justified. So you're right. It doesn't happen a lot. So, pretty crazy to see, especially in a tight duel. Tristan, what were your thoughts on this Night Point Open? I thought it'd be a little bit more competitive, to be honest. It seemed a little bit watered down.
Yeah, so when we previewed the Night Point Open last weekend, I was really excited to see some of the results of this. Like I said, it was going to be a big statement tournament for Penn State. There was a handful of guys that I wanted to see either position battle or just kind of see where they were at. But overall, I think it wasn't as deep as I was anticipating. I know some teams didn't bring a full lineup, and the brackets were very small. Some of them only had 7, 8, 9 guys. So it wasn't as tough of a tournament. Nonetheless, there were still some good matches, and we did at least get a measuring stick on some guys to some degree. Brody Teske, for example, for Penn State, finished third. His only loss coming to Hildenbrandt from Central Michigan. Not necessarily a bad loss. I think it was 6-0. But, definitely points out that, he's not a All-American guy at the moment, at least, probably. Hildebrandt maybe ranked just outside the top 10. The usual big guns for Penn State, Bravo Young, Nick Lee, Mark Hall looked really good, pretty much steamrolled their way through. But 149 was interesting to see Vercleren get the better of Luke Gardner 3-2. That kind of flip-flop from, I guess, the wrestle-off before. So that seems to be a position battle that's still one that fans need to keep an eye on. And then at 197, fans are probably quick to, especially non-fans of Penn State, are probably quick to say that Kyle Cannell is he's overrated and he's a bust and whatever. He only went, I think he won his first match in a ride out and then dropped his second match to an opponent from, I don't even remember where he was from. But and then he medical forfeit out of the tournament. So I guess what that says to me is that he might be banged up or he might be hurt. I'm not really sure. Or maybe he is just, rusty and he needs to get some matches under his belt. What did you think about that, Rob?
I think Cannell is just, this is who he was his whole career. Like, he kind of caught fire at the NCAA tournament. I think, he wasn't a high seed. He was in a pigtail. So to absolutely expect him to come in and wrestle like the number 2 or 3 guy, I think is a little bit foolish. He has the talent, has the ability, but, he's never been that guy. So we'll see. He's in a great room. I think, he could still be an All-American and get better and kind of move up the ranks a little bit. But to think he's going to come in and just dominate and, pin Colin Moore again, I don't know. I wasn't high on that. I thought it was a bit of fool's gold in that regard.
It's tough to say because even if you're a guy that's not at that elite caliber, but to catch fire at the NCAA tournament, that might, for somebody who's not elite, that might be win 1 or 2 matches. But Cannell, he got 3rd place and he pinned Colin Moore, and then he came down and beat him again for 3rd, and he had some really good wins in that tournament aside from that. So I don't know, it's a head scratcher to see someone who was so untouted, I guess, going into the tournament and have the tournament of your life and get 3rd place. You have to think
so let's move on to some other teams. Clarion took a loss to George Mason.
The whole year off
George
Mason's,
they're improved. They're well coached. They're tough.
As a setback.
I think that Clarion won the marquee matchups. You had Taylor Orts over Alex Madrigal, 2 NCAA qualifiers, and then Brock Zackrell over Colston Tbilisi, 4-2. So, they won the bigger matchups but lost the dual meet. Tristan, were you teammates with Madrigal? He's an ODU transfer, right?
I actually hosted him on his recruiting trip. He overlapped me by 1 year and missed him. So I think I was 1 year out of college. I was a grad assistant at that point when he was a freshman. So I just missed him. But I was actually roommates with him for a year. So it's good to see that he's moved on and he's doing pretty well at George Mason. He did come up short against Orts, but he's turned it into a pretty good career. He's definitely ranked inside the top 20. And Brock Zackrell had another close match. Rob, you talked about Tbilisi coming down 2 weight classes from 165, and we were kind of posing the question if that would be maybe a size advantage against Zackrell.
So what else do you want to talk about from the individual
perspective? A year or 2 ago. So maybe it was, I don't know, a close, tight win for Brock there, but nonetheless, he did get the victory. So there was a couple dual meets that happened over the weekend that were not Pennsylvania teams, but some PA guys that played a big role. I would say probably the most shocking result of the weekend and maybe of the whole season so far was Ryder coming up with a big win over Minnesota, in Minnesota too, nonetheless. And then they ended up beating Northern Illinois too. So this Ryder team is for real. But local PA guy from me, Central Dauphin grad Chris Wright, came out pretty good in his opening dual meets here as a redshirt freshman. He got a major over Drew West from Northern Illinois, and then he won 6-5 over Minnesota's Brent Jones. So, his win, you could say, kind of catapulted Ryder over Minnesota. I think the final score of the dual meet was only a couple points. So that's a must-win for them, and he got the job done, so good for him. And then in the Stanford, North Carolina duel, 2 PA boys came up just short, both lost by the exact same score. AC Headley, who we talked about last week, who pulled a big upset in the duel over Michigan. He came up just short against Stanford, and so did the heavyweight Gunning. They both lost 4-3. So, get back to the drawing board, but tight losses there for those guys. I'm sure they'll be fine. And then the last thing I was going to touch on, an ODU alum here, another guy I hosted on his recruiting trip, Shane Jones. Some people probably hear that name, see his name for ODU, and don't even know who he is or where he's from. He is actually a Pennsylvania product, a graduate of Stroudsburg High School. He was a walk-on to Old Dominion. He was not a very big-time recruit. I think he may have made it to the state tournament one time, but I don't think he placed. And, he's the hardest working kid I've probably ever seen. I remember when I was a grad assistant, he'd be in the room like 3-4 times a day, just like unbelievable amount of work ethic for that guy. And he's really blossomed into it. He's going to be a household name, I think, this year. He just picked up a top 10 win over Bullard from NC State in the dual meet, who was ranked 10th in the country. So that, and he had a really tight match with Shane Griffith from Stanford, who's ranked in the top 10.
Yeah, I watched
he's had
that
a couple
dual
other
meet
quality wins this year. So I think he's a name you're going to see in the rankings here soon.
You could just tell he's a grinder.
Aren't familiar
right?
with him,
Without you telling me that he's
product.
a hard worker, you could tell he just kept after it. Not a ton of talent or natural ability, but just a tough kid. On that note, with that dual meet, you had Hayden Hidley knock off Larry Early with a last-second takedown. Kind of a weird match. He got the first takedown, was about to get the second, and Early really did some good countering and scrambling to get out of it and get his own takedown, and Hidley needed one late. And Trent Hidley beat Agee from Old Dominion. He pounded him. He ended up getting a major decision, pushed him all over the mat. He looked really good, so looking forward to watching those guys wrestle the rest of the year. Ohio State and Pitt, maybe the marquee dual meet of the weekend. Pitt ended up winning 4 out of 10, but really those bonus points hurt them bad. You had Sasso slap on a pin. Luke Pletcher looked like an animal. Over the weekend, he got majors over Matthews after giving up the first takedown, and a major over Mitch Moore, who's very dangerous. More offense than we've seen from him. He looks like he's on a mission. He looks really good. Philippi looked good versus Kinner. Sasso beat up Kemmerer and then got stuck by Brett Moore. Tried to duck under, got pancaked. I hate to use the word caught. However, I am still very confident that Sasso could flip that result. But those Moore boys are dangerous, so he had to know going in that he could get put on his back, and they're tough from there. Ethan Smith with a pretty crazy weekend. He loses to Wenzel, and he pulls a huge upset and beats David McFadden. Is this a breakout win for Smith? Is this an anomaly? Like, Tristan, what the heck happened here?
I mean, it's hard to say. It's you don't want to be the guy that's sitting here behind the microphone that's making excuses for any of these guys. But, Rob, as you know, having been in this position where, we've wrestled in different scenarios in college wrestling, I will say, if I had to guess, David McFadden is dropping down a weight from 174 to 65. And, it's a totally different ballgame wrestling on a 1 hour weigh-in in a dual meet. So like I said, I don't want to make excuses. I don't want to take anything away from Ethan Smith. But I will say, when you're getting to the later rounds in tournaments, when, you're 15, 20, I don't even know, 10, 15 pounds over what the weigh-in weight was, you're a totally different animal than you are on that 1 hour weigh-in. So it wouldn't be at all shocking for a guy who's dropping down a weight class to maybe not have the match of his life on a 1 hour weigh-in, especially that was either the first or the second time he's probably gotten down to 65 on a 1 hour weigh-in. So I don't know, maybe he just didn't have the juice in that match, but that's not to take anything away from Smith. And I also think that result speaks very highly of Wenzel, because he's a guy we really talked up in the previews, the guy we expected big things from this year. And, he's done nothing to disappoint us so far. He's gotten a lot of big wins, a major over Perez from Campbell, and then a win over Smith, who just beat McFadden. So, the transitive property doesn't always apply in wrestling, but you would have to say that Wenzel is, he's jumping into a top 10, 15 conversation at this point in the season at least.
Yeah, really strong start for him. So, keep it up, Wenzel. Franklin Marshall, the Dips, grabbed a few wins this weekend over Davison and VMI. Edinboro, man, they went out and beat up on Ohio and Long Island, who's pretty weak. But Ohio's historically a pretty tough team. Vandell at 33 beats another national qualifier in Mario Guillen, I think is how you pronounce it. That's 2 national qualifiers he's beaten. It's still November. So, that might be a little diamond in the rough they have for Edinboro. Wolfpack Open, Hidley goes out and wins that, beats Zavosky 3-2. And then Robbie Patrick, he beat who did he beat this weekend, Tristan?
He beat the Flitz kid from App State, who I'm not too familiar with, but Flitz in the semis beat number 13 ranked Bullard from NC State. So kind of a rough weekend for those Bullard boys. Both got upset by unranked guys. But nonetheless, Patrick looked good. It even says on his UVA profile that he battled a lot of injuries last year as a true freshman. So he seems to be healthy this year, and that's a really good start for him.
No, yeah, hopefully he keeps it up. Big dual meet this weekend. Penn State travels out west to wrestle Arizona State. I think some of the marquee matchups we could have seen are not to be, but still a good dual meet altogether. Tristan, what do you like in this duel?
Probably the one that jumps off the page to me the most would be Vincenzo and Shields. That's a rematch of the NCAA semis last year, which was a 1-point match won by Cenzo. I think Cenzo beat him by worse in the duel last year, but the semis at NCAAs was a very close match. Shields is kind of notorious for he's a very stingy guy. He's hard to score on. So, in a big high profile match like that, it's not surprising that he had a close match. It will be interesting to see. I'm assuming Cenzo will be back in the lineup this week. He didn't wrestle in the.
He was in New York City for the Bill Farrell, but he lost to Nolf and then defaulted out.
Well, hopefully he's not injured, so we definitely want to see that match coming back up. And then at 174, Mark Hall will be taking on a different Valencia this year. He's kind of had that rivalry with Zahid over the years. It'll be Anthony Valencia, so probably not as tough of a matchup for Hall, but those Valencia boys are obviously scrappers, so that'll be interesting. I guess aside from that, it'll just be interesting to see if Cannell wrestles. He medical forfeited out after going 1-1, I guess, so it'll be interesting to see if he's out there, and if he's not, do they pull the red shirt of Mike Beard? I don't know what you do there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, realistically, they could probably bump up whoever and still win the dual meet. But, I mean, I don't know. Is Cannell hurt? Is his pride hurting or what? We'll have to wait and see, I guess. Two matches I'm excited for, though, is 25 and 49. These are kind of prove-it matches. You're going to have Teskey facing Courtney, who's ranked 25th. You're going to have Gardner or Verclaren wrestling Maruka, who's ranked 19th. I think both of the Penn State guys are slight dogs in this match, but certainly winnable. And I think if they win that match, they kind of break into that next tier. If they lose it, they're kind of stuck in the same tier as before. So I don't know. I mean, it's a long travel day. Arizona State's certainly used to that. Penn State maybe doesn't travel as much as ASU. I don't think anyone travels as much as ASU, so that's not a dig at Penn State. But looking forward to seeing 25-49, how they're able to pan that out.
Yeah, so also the Navy Classic will be coming up this weekend, and that is becoming progressively a tougher and tougher tournament, Rob. I know I'll let you speak to it more because you actually competed in the tournament. I know you said a couple weeks ago that when you were there, you wrestled Navy's entire, 90-man roster when you were there.
Yeah, you'd always laugh because you'd have like 7 Navy kids in the bracket, and the top one was always really tough, and then the other ones were all like solid, but they were all the same, like just good, big, in shape, tough. Like I said, it was like the Tbilisi of college wrestling tournaments. But yeah, I mean, this year they got some top tier talent. Like you're looking, from a Pennsylvania standpoint, Bucknell, Edinboro, and Lock Haven are competing there, and then you're getting the likes of Old Dominion, Rutgers, Michigan State, Navy, Virginia Tech, American, Cleveland State, George Mason. Not to name every team, but I mean, it seems like a pretty loaded tournament.
Oregon State making a pretty far trip as well. That's they're really coming literally across the country.
Yeah, it's got to be about as far as it gets.
But yeah, let's. You want to jump in weight by weight?
Yeah, let's 25 Pennsylvania perspective. You're looking at Gage Curry, 2-time national qualifier, Luke Warner, and then Corbin Myers. If he's down to weight, he's yet to compete this year. From a PA perspective, and then you have Rayvon Foley from MSU. You can have both those Old Dominion boys, Cardinale and McGee, who've been wrestling really well, and then Corbin Mink from Campbell, who. Gage Curry's beaten a few times. 33, probably looking at Ty Varndell, who's really hot for Edinboro. DJ Fellman, who maybe isn't that hot for Lock Haven, but he's pretty darn tough. And then Darren Miller from Bucknell. And then, the guys outside of Pennsylvania. You got Noah Gonzer's probably the toughest dude, ranked number 10. Alvarez from Rutgers, number 11. Colin Girardi, who he's not a Pennsylvania guy, but I'm really high on this kid. I think he's really, really tough. And then Tim Rooney. Those first 2 weights, Tristan, what are you looking forward to? Right off the bat, I'm looking forward to seeing this Girardi kid as a non-Pennsylvania guy. And then outside of that, I'm looking forward to seeing how Varndell and Miller, a couple of true freshmen, do at 133.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys I'm interested to see. I mean, not all of them Pennsylvania guys. Obviously, Old Dominion in my school, Cardinale and McGee. Cardinale's been getting the nod for all the dual meets so far, and McGee was around a 12 guy last year. So, I mean, that's an interesting storyline to keep watching. Cardinale just upset Camacho from NC State, who's ranked in the top 10. So I don't know if they got a position battle for real there, if McGee's banged up or what, but that's something to keep an eye on. At 33, it's like you said, there's kind of stories of hot and cold here. Fellman, I think, went, 0-4 at the Journeyman tournament, and then he's kind of looking to get back in the win column, whereas Ty Varndell has been a huge super true freshman so far for Edinboro. He's a PA State runner-up in AA last year. Didn't even win the title and comes in as a true freshman. He's got 2 ranked wins. He's probably, vying for a top 20 spot right now. So this will be a really good opportunity for him to keep showcasing his ability. And I agree with you. The Girardi kid from Virginia Tech, I know one of my, he wasn't on staff, but one of the college coaches I had in college that came and worked with us a lot. And one of my buddies is a coach of the Predator Wrestling Club in Richmond. I believe Girardi is a product of those guys. So I've heard of him for years about how talented he was, and he's already showcasing it. Got a nice win over Quinn Kinner from Ohio State in that dual meet. So that'll be an interesting weight class. And then moving up to 141, probably the biggest thing I'm curious to see is if Kyle Shoup will compete. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He was excited to go. We didn't know of anything about any kind of injury or anything, but he did not compete in the Journeyman, where he probably would have had some pretty tough matches. So it'll be interesting to see if he competes this weekend or not. He's got the likes of Mitch Moore from Virginia Tech. He's got Cedarion Perry, former All-American, who's at Old Dominion. He's got Josh Heil from Campbell, true freshman who's pretty talented. JoJo Aragona from Rutgers. So there's some good guys in that weight. I kind of want to see Shoup back on the mat.
No, definitely want to see him out there. Always want to watch that kid wrestle. So here's to hoping he's out there this weekend. 49, not a ton of PA action. We'll kind of gloss over that. We got Alex Clucker at 157. He's going to really test himself. He's going to see Larry Early, All-American, BJ LaPrade, ranked number 13, Hunter Wiltis from Oregon State, ranked number 19, and then Jake Tucker from Michigan State. So we'll see where Clucker is because he looked awesome last week. Excited to see him keep progressing. Zach Hartman up a weight for the Bucknell Bison up to 65. He's going to get tested, man. He's looking down the barrel of David McFadden. Fresh off an upset. It's probably going to be coming out here with bad intentions. Quentin Perez, him and Hartman actually is a really fun match. Both these guys score and turn a lot. I bet that would be a lot of rolling around. And then Tanner Schedule from Navy, who's a national qualifier. What are your thoughts on Hartman moving up, Tristan? I think there's a lot of reasons they made that decision, but what are your thoughts on guys moving up in general, mid-season or the start of the season, rather? I
think you got to do what's best for the athlete, and I think the coach, has a good say in that. If he thinks it's the right move, I think he'll allow it to happen. And he's done a good job so far moving up. We talked extensively about him in the preview about how the first half of the season he was on fire, cracked the top 10 and then kind of waned off for the rest of the year. You have to wonder if that's maybe a weight issue. That kind of thing does happen, especially as the year goes on. The college season is a complete grind. As the season goes on, that weight gets harder and harder to make maybe. So moving up may be a good idea for Hartman. We'll see how he does. This will be a big statement for him. He's got McFadden, like you said, probably be his toughest match, but Schedule and Perez are definitely tough guys as well. And then moving up to 74, couple PA guys here headlining the field. Jacob Oliver for Edinboro. He is ranked in the top 25 as a sophomore, NCAA qualifier last year. He'll be tested by Jared Segrist from Lock Haven. He's a guy we've talked a lot about also, who's always been on the cusp of qualifying, hasn't quite made it yet, but he's always a solid kid. And then Joe Grello from Rutgers and Spencer Carey from Navy were both national qualifiers last year. So got a couple qualifiers in the mix. No blue chip guys maybe at that weight class for this tournament, but a couple, top 20, 25 guys. And then 184, Corey Hazel from Lock Haven's probably the top guy. He's ranked number 13. And Cody Mulligan from Edinboro, who's a young guy, but he's very talented as well. And then you also are looking at Andrew Morgan from Campbell. He's the one who's been off to a really hot start. I think he's undefeated, and he has a win over Nino Bonacorsi. So he'll be interesting to see if he shakes up that field, as well as Hunter Bolin from Virginia Tech. He's ranked in the top 10 as well. Anything you want to talk about 74-84 here, Rob?
No. I'm interested to see how those PSAC guys compete. I think he's bound to get a big win here eventually. He beat Dupre last year, but that's before Dupre was Dupre. But I think he could have a big tournament here. 97, I think Drew Phipps, he's got a good shot to win this, reigning national qualifier. He'll have Colin McCracken, Kent State, Waynesburg Central High School. And then Jordan Pagano is ranked number 14 from Rutgers. Nico Camacho from American has started off hot. He'll be pushed out there by Jerry Hino, former round of 12, Colucci from Rutgers, top 20 guy, and then Kane Hutchison. Lehigh Princeton. Who would have thought I mean, I don't know, 5-10 years ago that this would be a dual meet worth talking about, but it is now. I mean, starting off, you got Jimmy Hoffman, ranked 25th, taking on Mike D'Angelo, former qualifier, ranked number 9. I think Hoffman is at some point going to get a very big win, and it could be this weekend. 57, you got Humphrey from Lehigh. He's 2-1 versus Monday, but Monday got the better of him at the Princeton Open. Both guys are really at that tier where they're getting ready to break through. Tristan, thoughts on the first half of this dual meet?
I think the two matches that are the most fan-friendly are the ones you just touched on. D'Angelo coming down a weight makes you wonder if Kolodzik being in the lineup all those years was kind of keeping him out of wrestling his actual weight class. So him coming down at 49 may be a better fit for him. Interesting to see what he'll be able to do. And we've talked a lot about Jimmy Hoffman. He had a huge summer of freestyle, and he's been off to a solid start this year. That could be a really good match. And then, like you said, Humphrey and Monday have already wrestled once this season. That will obviously be a good match as well. And then moving up to the bigger guys, Travis Stefanik was a national qualifier for Princeton last year. He bounced up to 184 at the East Stroudsburg Open. I don't know that he necessarily is staying at that weight. It might have been one of those things where, no disrespect to the East Stroudsburg Open, but it wasn't too deep of a field. There was a lot of competition last weekend that most of the starters of Division I college programs were at. So it was kind of a redshirt backup open, I would say more. But he did wrestle at 84 there. So if he is at 84, him against Chris Weiler could be a good match. If not, maybe he's back at 74 and he wrestles Cutler. So that could be interesting as well. Anything else you want to touch on that dual meet, or should we just move on?
Yeah, some other big matches. Like I mentioned before, Hidley's going to have a huge weekend. Trent, that is. They're wrestling Cornell and Binghamton, so he's going to see Dupre and Darmstead. I mean, this is a proving ground for Trent. I mean, he looked really awesome last weekend. He's an absolute bully. I mean, that's the best way to put it. The kid's aggressive. He's mean. He beats the crap out of people. I think that would serve him well versus Darmstead. I think he can get to his legs. He can push him around, get to his tie-ups. But Dupre doesn't back down from anyone. He's big and strong as well. How do you see this playing out for Trent, man? I mean, it could be a huge statement weekend, or it could be a freshman weekend where he loses a couple tight matches to All-American caliber guys.
I mean, I'd probably have to say I'm higher on Trent Hidley than any other freshman out there. So I'm expecting 2 wins from Trent this weekend. That being said, Dupre is great. He was in the blood round, I believe, last year as a freshman himself. He's also an extremely talented young guy. Darmstadt took the whole year off last year, if I remember right. I don't know if he was hurt or he just did the Ivy red shirt. But, 2 really solid matchups. Exciting matches to see. Like you said, Hidley, he scores a lot. He's really offensive for a big guy. So that's not going to be a match where 2 guys are standing around, hand fighting, and it's going to be a 2-1 match, I don't think. I definitely think you'll see some good offense in those matches, but I'm really excited to see how it goes. But, yeah, I'm confident. I'm banking on a 2-0 record for Trent.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Keystone Classic, we're going to have man on scene, Joe Youngblood, my partner from last year, will be there. Don't want to go into too much detail because we're going to talk a lot about it next week. But weight that catches my eye is 157. You have Delvecchia from Ryder and Matthew Zavotsky from App State there as national qualifiers. And then Justin McCoy, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, with the big win over Teamer last weekend. And then Artelona, the hometown kid from Penn. That weight looks like it's going to be really the class of the tournament. Tristan, do you like any of the other weights here?
I would have highlighted the 57 weight class myself. I mean, the Delvecchia kid from Ryder, he just seems like he just keeps winning. He drops a weight class, and now he's in the top 10. He just keeps winning. He keeps getting big wins. He keeps getting bonus points. He's really good on top. That could be a really interesting weight class. And then Justin McCoy, he's a redshirt freshman, but he's off to a big start. He's out to prove himself. Artelona had a really good true freshman year last year, and now he's bumping up a weight. So I just think that's going to be the toughest weight. And even Zavostoski had a 3-2 match with Hayden Hidley at the Wolfpack Open this past weekend. So all 4 of those guys are tough. I think that's your toughest weight class. That's really the one to keep an eye on. No,
I agree. Clarion, they travel to the Midwest. They're going to end up wrestling Purdue, Northern Illinois, and Indianapolis. 49, Griffin Perriott and or Limix versus Brock is a big match. That's 2 guys that Brock needs to beat if he needs to get where he wants to get. And then 97, you're going to have Greg Bulsack taking on either Thomas Panola, who's 5-1 on the year, but he's wrestling really well, or Christian Bruner, who's round of 12. So really where Purdue's good, Clarion's good as well. So it'll be interesting to see those matches shake out. Pitt Lehigh. This is a good dual meet. You're going to see Cole Matthews wrestle Pomrinka. Matthews went from a big high, knocking off Heil, to a big low, kind of getting thumped by Luke a little bit. So we'll see how he bounces back here, because Pomrinka is really, really steady. He's not an easy match for anyone. Romani versus Humphreys. Surprisingly, they've never wrestled, but there's a lot of rolling around here. Humphreys is going to be fun to watch this weekend. He's got 2 big matches. Nino versus Weiler at 84. Hopefully Nino gets back on the right track. Stout, Jacobson, both guys never wrestled. Then Wood and Thomas. This is a pretty good dual meet, man. I think Pitt has a good shot of shaking this thing up and winning it. What matches do you really like here, Tristan?
Honestly, I like all of them. I mean, I think they're all good matches. I always like watching Weiler wrestle. Like I said, I've known him since he was a little kid. I like his style, and obviously like watching Nino. So I think that 184-pound match will probably be one of my favorites to see. And then heavyweight, too. Jordan Wood and Demetrius Thomas. I'm kind of surprised those guys have never wrestled. But like we said, Wood kind of had that upset loss to Orndorff from Utah Valley. So he's looking to get his head back on straight and get out there and get a quality win. But Demetrius Thomas is a really tough athletic heavyweight for Pitt. He also just recently had a loss to Singletary from Ohio State. So that's kind of 2 guys that got upset within the last week or 2 that are looking to get back on track. And that's a tough matchup.
Yeah, I think I favor Wood here, but Thomas he's not an easy out. If Thomas could pull that off, that really gives Pitt a nice shot to win the dual meet. Some other PA guys going at it this weekend. You're going to have Mikey Labriola taking on Bryce Steyert, 2 All-Americans going at it. That should be a really nice match between Nebraska and Northern Iowa. Labriola also wrestles Hastings from Wyoming. That was a 14-11 match last year. Wyoming guys are just tough. I've never wrestled one, but they just are in really good shape, especially wrestling there. It looks like it's a really difficult place to wrestle.
I've wrestled quite a few. So yeah, quite a few Wyoming guys. They're always.
Who'd you wrestle from out there?
I don't even remember all their names. My true freshman year, I wrestled a kid. I could never tell you his name, but he really did that thing where you get on top and they just sit straight back and try to grab your head and defensive pin you. Their entire team was doing it that year, and that kid did it to me like 4 different times. It was for me, I'm a kind of a crab ride guy, and it was not ideal to be the guy on top trying to tip a guy back and he's just reaching for your head. You have to worry about getting defensive pin the whole match. And then at the Journeyman, I wrestled Dakota Freest, and then I ended up wrestling him again at NCAAs that year. So he was a pretty tough guy. 2 completely different styles of those kids, but like you said, both really tough, well coached by Mark Branch. He's done a ton of good things with that program.
No, I like them a lot, and this isn't a Wyoming podcast, but they're a good program. For all of you listeners out there, if you're sitting at home on a Friday or Saturday and it's late and a Wyoming match comes on because they're in that mountain time, feel free to give them a watch. They're an entertaining team. You have Iowa State. I mean, the question going through my mind, I'll say it. What weight is DeSanto going? Who's going 33? Who's going 41? Is Murin hurt? It sounds like he might be hurt. What do we expect to see here, Tristan?
I don't know, honestly. Is it Dyson Gold, the 8th grader, who has all the inside scoop for us, Rob, that we're in the group text with? He seems to know more than we do. But I would say so far there's a couple question marks in the Iowa lineup that we're kind of waiting to see. They did have that dual meet against Chattanooga, but what was it, 39-0? You can't necessarily say that they stuck out the lineup that we're going to see against an Iowa State team, for example. So it will be interesting to see what they end up doing. I don't know if we're going to see, the likes of Paul Glynn out there against Iowa State, but you never know.
Yeah, I think part of it depends on Murin. It sounds like he's hurt. But do you roll the dice? I mean, if you're Iowa, do you put out Glynn versus Small, who's a pretty tough backup, and I don't think Gomez is down to weight yet, and then throw DeSanto out there versus Parker, who's beating him? Because if you look at that, they lose those 2 matches. Iowa State's favored at 49. 57, there's a lot of people that would say David Carr is going to beat Caleb Young. I'm not necessarily one of them, but just saying what other people might. And then 84, they're going to be favored. I mean, that splits the duel, right? Versus you put DeSanto at 33, he's not losing to Small. He's going to win that match. Pretty much shores up the duel meet, but it remains to be seen what they're going to do. To my point, though, David Carr and Caleb Young, that's going to be a heck of a match. Carr is an awesome redshirt freshman, stud, junior world champ. But Caleb Young is really, really, really good. Was in the NCAA semis last year. 2 wins over Ryan Deacon, who's an absolute beast. Do you take the young guy here, or do you think Young's just he's going to outfox him, as my college coach used to say?
Man, it's a setup of a question because this is the PA Power podcast, but I don't want to necessarily be biased for PA. I really don't know who will win that match. I think Carr didn't wrestle the first few matches of the season. He did finally make his debut this past weekend, so I'm thinking he's healthy, but I'm not 100% sure. He looked good. I think he got a tech fall against Bucknell, if I'm not mistaken. And, I think these guys wrestle kind of an opposite style, I would say, just from what I've seen of both of them. So it could be an interesting matchup. I don't know. I mean, this is a big, big test for Carr. First or second, I guess, event of him putting on an Iowa State singlet. He's got the second-ranked guy in the country. One would have to think that Young, a veteran guy who's been at the big dance a couple times, would have to be the favorite. But you never know. In this day and age, these true freshman guys are as tough as anyone. They're winning junior world titles when they're 18 years old. So I don't know, man. I think it could go either way. I think Carr is athletic. He could score some takedowns, but Young is stingy and just overall tough as nails. So it could be a really good match. I don't even know if I can give you a prediction on that one.
Yeah, I think if Carr can score some clean takedowns early, I mean, this is like a really stupid point, but especially in this match, if he can score some clean takedowns early, it puts him in the driver's seat. But even if he gets one early that he really, really has to work for, because Young, like he doesn't have necessarily like a second gear. And what I mean by that is he doesn't go from like 4 to 10, then 10 to 5. Like he can kind of keep that 8.5 for 7 minutes or probably 70 minutes. So when you start losing steam a little bit and you go from a 10 to an 8 to a 7, that's when he starts pouring it on you. So if you have to work for that first one, I think, and he's tough on the mat, even if Carr has to work for one, I kind of favor Young in this match. But if you can get a couple clean ones, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I like that assessment. Time will tell. We'll see what happens. But I think nonetheless, like you said, that's probably the most exciting matchup of the dual meet. So
Tristan, I got to get it running here soon. Is there anything you want to say, or are you ready to get on the phone with Coach Matt Hill?
I'm ready to get on the phone. I'm excited to have Matt Hill on. He's second-year coach at Edinboro. He's taken his team from a 2-9 record in dual meets last year to already out to a 5-1 start. They've had blowout wins over Ohio and Kent State. Really tough team already so far, and he's turned it all around in just 1 year. So we're going to go ahead and dial up Matt Hill and bring him on the show. All right, PA Power Wrestling fans, we have a very special treat joined tonight by Edinboro head coach Matt Hill. Matt, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So jumping right in here, got a lot of questions to cover here for you, but just take us back to, you had a really standout career at Edinboro as a student athlete, 3-time national qualifier. You were a 12th seed your senior year, over 100 wins in your college career, and then you had a pretty lengthy stint as a coach at Kent State. So just take us through your process of, when the Edinboro head coaching job opened up. That's your alma mater. I saw you had a quote about how that was, your dream job. So take us through that process of the hiring process and how you ultimately became, you got your first head coaching job at your alma mater at Edinboro.
Yeah, it was one of those things you definitely have to jump at, and obviously if you have that opportunity, you want to take it. Through, the end of the, two seasons ago, I guess, after NCAAs in Cleveland, Tim Flynn, took the job at West Virginia, and it was real surprising. And then, obviously, once I heard that, it was kind of one of those things where I had to throw my name in the hat and figure out if this is something I wanted to do. It took about a month and a half for me to get hired, so it was a transition that I wasn't sure if I was getting the job, but I was really grateful and pleased to be to be a part of the pool of people who got to interview, and I was happy to accept it.
So when you took over the program, obviously some guys left, some guys transferred, and you were left with not the most veteran squad. What was kind of the biggest challenge, and how were you able to kind of right the ship going into your first year as a head coach with kind of a young team? What was your mentality going into that first season?
I was to stay positive, kind of get those guys that had to grow up fast, get in the lineup, get them a lot of experience, and make sure they realize that there are guys, and I'm going to go to war with who I have. I was excited. It was a challenge, and we kind of kept developing throughout the season with those guys we had in our lineup, and some of them still are. And it's just a growth process. And we, me and the staff were just stayed positive. We obviously we we coached him up. We had some moments where we, were a little upset, a little angry, but it was challenging. I mean, I'm not used to losing that much, but I think we kind of saw the long-term perspective, and I was kind of excited for year two, coming into it. So, but yeah, there was a lot of challenges. I had a lot of guys that never even played in any state tournament, and it was they had to grow up fast. That's the way to put it.
So then the offseason rolls around. You guys make two big additions to your staff. Sean Boyle, who was a stud lightweight for Michigan, and then Ernest James coming back to his alma mater. He's a big-time heavyweight. What have those guys done? How did your process go about landing those guys as assistant coaches, and what have they done so far to make an impact?
Yeah, Ernest, he's alumni. He's alumni. He wrestled at Edinboro. He's very familiar with the system, the blueprint to be successful. He was under Tim Flynn as well, so he kind of was on the same page with me with a lot of philosophies. Ernest is new to coaching, but he's very relatable to guys. He hit the ground running the first week he started working with us in July. He's just a great guy to have around, super positive, very stern, very, his first name really fits who he is too. He's very earnest and straight to the point. So, super excited to have him a part of my staff, and, everybody loves him, and it's just a great addition. And then Sean, he saw the opportunity, and I kind of saw that we got Ernest up as a heavyweight. We have Sean as a lightweight. He's done a great job with a lot of lightweights, starting over at Bakersfield for 2 seasons. He got a lot of guys to the NCAA tournament, and then last year at Buffalo, he did a great job with all the lightweights. He got a few guys at NCAAs as well, so he has a really good track history of developing the lighter weights. Obviously, he's a smaller guy too. So right now, we all have a lot of good characteristics across the board with coaching. So he's a quiet, more mellow type. Ernest is a very stern, hardcore guy. I think I play both of those sides of the coaching philosophies. So I like my staff. We work really well together. We have a great relationship, and I'm excited for the rest of the season.
So this year, you guys have really hit the ground running. I mean, you totaled only, I think, 2 wins last season, and you guys surpassed that in just your first competition. You guys blew out, the school that you used to coach at, Kent State. You just got a big win, demolished Ohio. Already 5-1 on the season this year. What would you say has been the biggest difference, aside from adding these guys to the coaching staff? What has just been the difference between last year to this year? You guys have really turned it around.
Yeah, a lot of consistency. We have a lot of hungry guys. Some new faces to the lineup, just some new energy. Our guys spend all summer training. We have, a lot of passionate guys that want to, do big things. Just guys stepping up and figuring out, what their role is on the team. So creating a little bit more depth in the room. We're still trying to do that. We still have some areas in our lineup we do need to create more depth. And, having just hard, consistent, productive practices every day throughout the summer, leading into preseason. Edinboro is a special place, too. I think, once you get the right guys in the right weight classes, you can put something special together. So nothing really crazy. I haven't changed much. Tim Flynn's one of those guys that I learned a lot of over the years. And then, obviously, at Kent State, I kind of learned some different things over there. And I just have a, good feel for, hopefully getting guys successful and getting them on the podium in March. But, I have a lot of work to do, and hopefully I can keep the winning ways continued in Edinboro.
Looking back through some of the results from this year, one guy who really jumped out to me is Ty Varndell, your 33-pounder. He's a true freshman. Got second place in PA AA states last year. Pretty local guy, it seems like, for Edinboro also. A good pickup, but he's already had 2 ranked wins on the season. He's coming off of a win over the 17th ranked kid, Gillen from Ohio. How has he been able to develop so quickly? If a guy doesn't even win a PA state title, or he's not a big nationally ranked recruit, he takes his lumps, but he's ready to go already as a true freshman.
Yeah, Ty was one of those guys we saw a lot of promise, throughout me coming in as a new coach. He came to club practices. He's local. He's really hard-working kid, real determined. He's at a weight class where I think he knew he had to get to be successful. I think he can be successful at 141, but the guy, he works his tail off. Really strong, dedicated kid. And yeah, he's one of those Pennsylvania guys that just kind of grit his way through things, and eventually he's beating a lot of guys he shouldn't. And he said that to me the other day, and I just said, hey, I'm pretty sure you should beat those guys. But he's getting that. He has a lot of confidence, and hopefully he just keeps developing them. And down the road, he's 4-time national qualifier, hopefully an All-American, down the road. So Ty's a great kid. He's a model. He's a model type of student athlete you want as well. So I'm really happy to have him as part of my team, and we'll keep progressing with him. And he's also working with Coach Boyle a lot, and he has a lot of influence on him. And it's good to see our staff really directly affecting guys like Ty as well.
Matt, I wanted to ask you guys about the duel you just had with Wisconsin. So as me and Rob talked about a couple of weeks ago, we're seeing kind of a trend here that teams are starting to host dual meets at high schools, which is kind of a cool tradition. You guys were able to land a spot at the local Sagertown High School, which is a nearby AA school that you guys are actually picking up a lot of recruits from. How were you guys able to set that duel up? And, I mean, it looks like it sold out a couple weeks in advance. It looked like an awesome atmosphere. What was your overall just impression from that duel?
Oh, it was great. It was small-town American wrestling, and we have a good relationship with Sagertown. Obviously, we have Cody Mulligan on our team, and Jim Mulligan's the head coach. And the unique situation was that we had 3 starters from that high school on our team. So when I was actually coming in as a head coach, Cody, was an incoming freshman. We lost all those guys. So I developed a really good relationship with Jim, and Miss Jim has been a great supporter of the program. And, Cody is going to be a really good wrestler for Edinboro too. So it just all came up in conversation throughout talking and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, it would be cool because Dylan Reynolds, Tyler Vath, and obviously Cody Mulligan are all in my starting lineup. It'd be cool to have a dual meet at Sagertown because we'll probably never get an opportunity with all those guys starting for us. So it kind of just, kind of kept up with it. And then eventually I gave Jim a date, and I said, hey, I don't have a team yet. I'm working on a team. And it just all fell through that Wisconsin was wrestling Buffalo, the night before. And, Chris called me up, and we kind of made it happen with Coach Bono. So, and just overall, I mean, it was great. It's great for the wrestling community. People, it was a big deal, and for the Northwest Pennsylvania wrestling as well. So we are excited to have it.
Yeah, a lot of the dual meets you see these days, they start having them in these big gyms where, only like maybe a quarter of the bleachers are filled. It kind of reminded me of you having coached at Kent State. I'm sure you took many trips there, but the West Gym at Northern Iowa, where you got that tiny little compact gym, but the place is packed and they're all on top of you yelling and screaming at you. It was very similar to that. Yeah, that's a good comparison. So yeah, you had fans screaming, and Wisconsin, they're Bono and Reed are great guys. They were all about it. So it was just a great evening for wrestling. Wish we could have came a little bit closer to beating them, but I think our guys wrestled pretty hard. So this is your guys' actually first year moving conferences into the MAC, and it's kind of ironic because, like I said, you came from coaching at Kent State where you spent many years in the MAC conference. So what's your outlook for the season now transitioning? It's probably honestly less of a transition for you than it is for your guys on the team, but it's going to mean more travel to the Midwest and just different competition than what the EWL saw. Yeah,
some extra dual meets heading to the West, and just I guess it's really just a big end of the year conference meet, a lot of more competition, more opportunity. It'll be kind of a bigger show for our guys to compete at the end of the year, so it brings a little bit more excitement and a little bit more prestige. I think our guys have a pretty level head about it. They have some big goals, and they look at some of their opponents, and they just think that there's another guy they have to wrestle. So, I'm really used to the MAC conference. Our guys are learning a little bit more about it each time they visit one of these schools or see these opponents. But yeah, it's a great opportunity, and we're excited to be a part of it. So it's going to just kind of keep on growing wrestling. So we're excited.
Yeah, browsing through your guys' schedule, you not only have a lot of dual meets, a lot of individual dual meets, but you guys will also be going to the Navy Classic and Cliff Keen Vegas tournament. Was that kind of done on purpose? Just the more matches, the more matches, the merrier type philosophy, or what was your guys' goal with that schedule?
I wanted to have, kind of like a dual meets and then, mix it up with some tournaments going into the end of November and then into December and get a little bit of break up until we do some more, until we start like kind of our dual meet stretch. So our guys have a long November. I think 5 straight weekends of wrestling and Thanksgiving break, and then we fly out to Vegas. It kind of just all morphed into that. I had to build in the breaks, heading up into certain times. February is kind of a good after we wrestle or Clarion in Michigan, we get a little break heading into the MAC championship. So we need those tournament settings where guys get some different looks and also get that 2-hour weigh-in, get prepared, and learning how to compete like throughout a whole day of competition. So Vegas is really tough. Our guys will have to acclimate to travel, getting all the proper rest and warm-ups and stuff like that. So it's just a good test for our guys heading into the back half of the season.
I want to take a minute and ask you about Jacob Oliver. So he was your lone NCAA qualifier last year as a freshman, and then he ended up winning the PSAC and EWL Division I Freshman of the Year honors. Now he's in his sophomore year. He's ranked in the top 25. How have you seen him progress? He was a pretty big recruit coming out of high school. Seems like he's making some progress.
Yeah, he is. I still think he needs to jump a level. He's got a lot to learn in wrestling, solidified some of his baseline wrestling, but he's full of energy. He's got a lot of power. I mean, he's one of those guys that he's got huge potential. We just got to bring it out of him, and it's part of my job and my staff's job to kind of make that happen. So he's a quiet kid. He loves the outdoors. He's real simple, and hopefully that is kind of fits the blueprint with some of the really good wrestlers over here at Edinboro. But I hopefully we can get him up to the next level. He keeps progressing. We just got to keep have him climb the hill. So we'll see. He'll get a lot of good opponents this coming weekend at the Navy Classic. So I think we'll know where our guys are a lot more after this weekend as well. So hopefully we can get some good wins coming up this weekend.
Matt, last thing for you. I always like to open it up at the end for just kind of a sales pitch, recruiting pitch, if you will. Usually it's student athletes on here, but even as you as a coach, any young prospective college wrestlers out here or parents that are listening to our show, what do you want to say about Edinboro, extremely rich tradition of wrestling? What do you want to say about the university and the wrestling program that would entice these young guys to take a look and come join the Fighting Scots?
Well, yeah, obviously our tradition's great. We have really good education up here at Edinboro. There's it's a great area for outdoors and fishing and hunting. We have a really close family setting with our wrestling. Obviously, the wrestling program's Division I, and we're kind of the highlighted sport on campus, even though you shouldn't say that, but we are. And it's a great when you come to Edinboro, you're not going to get lost. We're not one of those big schools that you can kind of not lose your way a little bit. I guess the best way to say it. But it's real family oriented. All the coaches are right next to campus. We'll work with you anytime, and we just we really care about you when you come here. So we're just like any other school, trying our best, make the best version of every kid that comes on our campus, and we won't, we take pride in what we do here. So it's a great campus. So a lot of people need to come up and see it.
Well, awesome. Thanks for joining us, Matt. Best of luck to you guys this weekend and the rest of this season. Obviously, we'll definitely be rooting for you guys. Anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
No, I appreciate it. Keep the good work up, and look out for the Fighting Scots this year.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
All right, and we just got done talking to second-year Edinboro head coach Matt Hill, already doing really big things with that program, has really turned the ship around. Fighting Scots will be in action this weekend at the Navy Classic, and then they will be in action again at the Cliff Keen Las Vegas tournament. So lots of competition coming up for those guys. We wish them the best. We thank Coach Hill for coming on the show with us. For Rob Waltko, I am Tristan Warner. We thank you guys for stopping in. Go ahead and give us a like or a share on social media, and we will see you next weekend. Thank you.